Iran and Israel attacked each other for the fourth straight night. Iran fired more missiles at Israel's major cities. Israel's Iron Dome defense system responded, but some of the missiles did get through. At least 5 Israelis were killed overnight.
What we saw over the weekend was an escalation as Iran showcased that they have what appear to be hypersonic missiles that are able to strike deep within the heart of Israel and are very hard to stop. We saw multiple times these rockets, these missiles slam into the heart of Tel Aviv and other parts of Israel, causing a lot of destruction, a lot of damage, and they're very hard to stop. They're very fast. It's extremely new technology. It leads to questions of how did Iran get these very advanced ballistic missiles while the world has been watching? And we're going to see how Israel continues as they continue with this massive intelligence operation to strike at the very heart of not just Iran's nuclear program, but their ability to wage terror across the Middle East and the world. It's astounding to watch. It is very impressive.
The Israelis are striking back, taking out top intelligence officials from the Iranian regime, including the country's chief intelligence officer and his deputy. They also took out what they say are 1/3 of the ballistic missile launching positions.
We are joined by Jordan Sekulow from Geneva, Switzerland, at the UN. What are you hearing in Geneva, in Europe, as you're there about the situation between Israel and Iran?
It's been interesting, Will, because in light of what happened on October 7th and in these couple of years that have followed, we've seen the world go from condemning the actions on October 7th to very quickly condemning Israel's response to eliminate Hamas. What we are seeing now after this strike on the Islamic Republic of Iran, not only to protect the survival of the Jewish state of Israel, but also to protect the free world against a radical regime that was on the precipice of nuclear weapons.
Israel has said the purpose of the war is also to cripple Iran's nuclear capability. When pressed on why they acted now, Netanyahu had this to say.
They were marching very quickly. They would achieve a test device and possibly an initial device within months, and certainly less than a year.
And so we've seen a lot of calls for ceasefires, the typical European response and UN response. But this is what I want to remind people today. Just behind me is the UN Human Rights Council. Remember, the United States is no longer a part of this. I want to set a stage for what it was like in there today. We were talking about the Democratic Republic of Congo, but, and no one but us mentioned the entire time that the group of people being killed there happened to be Christians. We were the only group out of all the countries. The second to last country that spoke before I did was the Islamic Republic of Iran. So while they're in a full-scale aerial campaign, at least not a ground war, but aerial war with the state of Israel, they are still at the United Nations, making it very clear that they're going to speak out and send their delegates and representatives into what is the most hostile body to Israel, and maybe second, the United States, inside this international body, which is why we're here. I mean, it's like why we work with the ECLJ to take these opportunities. Tomorrow is on Israel. We will be present here again, representing our position and the position of our donors and supporters. But just one seat down from me, Will, was UNRWA. And remember, the United States under the Trump administration has just decided in these last 160 odd days to stop funding these groups. And you realize the power that they have, the influence that they have, and why it's so important that we encourage our representatives. And I want to talk to Republicans directly right now and conservatives, because there is this growing rift, and Europeans believe that there is this moment, especially the anti-Israel bloc within inside Europe, that this is the moment to try and divide the pro-Israel sentiment inside the United States. It's why it's so important right now for all the supporters of Israel to make their voice loud and clear, join our petitions, stand up, call your representative, because there are unfortunately not just left-wing Democrats who we would kind of assume to be anti-Israel, but actually those within our own movement who are now preaching this anti-Israel message as if they don't have the right to defend themselves against a nuclear Iran. The world failed in preventing Iran from going nuclear. The world failed. The UN failed. The other agencies of the world, the IAEA, they failed. But they didn't stop warning Israel, Will. They kept telling Israel, this is a serious problem. The IAEA reports are very clear. And so Israel has decided to act. Let's make sure we're standing with Israel. And a great example of that is that Iron Dome system. Now, unfortunately, some of those missiles, as you mentioned, those hypersonic missiles, it looks like, were able to get through that system. But for the majority of the attacks, remember, Israel has air superiority dominance over Iran right now. And fortunately, because of a U.S. military system jointly manufactured with Israel and deployed in Israel, most Israelis will be safe when the bombing and the missiles begin again today.
Would you say the number of ballistic missiles, rockets, and drones are leveling off from night after night after night? Because that's what Israel is banking on, that they're going to locate the launchers, they're going to run out of rockets, they can't replenish, and they have no air defense. So is that happening?
Look, the Iranians appear to be preserving what missiles they have left. We spoke with a senior Israeli intelligence official over the weekend who indicated the assessment is that Iran has around 2,000 ballistic missiles. And the Israelis have been able to take out some of the stockpile. They've been able to target, like I said, a third of the launching positions. But this still gives Iran the capability to fire hundreds of ballistic missiles into this country. And that is why Israel is still in a state of emergency. The airport is closed, and they are bracing for challenging days ahead.
Following the Islamic Republic of Iran and UNRWA being just a couple seats down from you, this just shows the importance of the work of the ACLJ. When the U.S. isn't a part of the Human Rights Council anymore, which is the right move, you still have to have the Ministry of Presence because Israel is outnumbered almost 192 to 1. Depending on the administration, maybe they get 191 to 2 if the U.S. is willing to stand with them, but they weren't under the previous 4 years. So the Ministry of Presence, being able to advocate for the Middle East's only democracy in a world where you see what Iran is able to do, is so important. And that's what ACLJ members and donors are a part of. This work, this very work that allows you to be there, sitting within close proximity of these diplomats from UNRWA, from the Iranian Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's astounding, even as someone who has worked with you for such a long time and among this work, it's still is so impressive, the work that we are able to do because of the ACLJ members and champions.
That's right. And you know what, Will? We're here because, as you said, we have to be a voice. You know, we don't just represent the United States. We don't represent just Israel. We represent our supporters. And our supporters have a global vision for the persecuted church, for the state of Israel, for Europe as well. You know, I joined you last time I joined you. I was in Hungary, and I was meeting with President Orban there. And there's a conservative movement happening. We see it in Italy. We see it in Hungary. We see it in Spain. We see it here. Also, we've seen it in France. We're seeing it across Europe. And there's a list of other countries I could go through. We're actually hosting a reception at the European Center for Law and Justice in just a couple of days with a lot of the members of the European Parliament from those very parties. When I was younger and we were just starting out with the European Center for Law and Justice, those parties didn't exist. They may have existed, but they didn't get enough votes, Will, to even have a representative inside the European Parliament or inside their own country's domestic legislative body. Now they do, and they are winning elections, and then they are having elections taken away from them. I mean, we saw that happen in we saw what happened in Poland recently. We have seen what happened in Romania as well, where a first round of election was declared to be null and void. So it was, of course, a conservative one. So this idea of election integrity is not just a U.S. issue either. And it is so important that we reverse course, that it is not strange to hear a U.S. accent inside the United Nations in Geneva a decade from now. A decade from now, for your children and grandchildren, let's make sure that we're back and we're still funding all of this. So let's make sure we have the influence that we should have. And I think what the groups like ACLJ are doing is our government taking a stand saying, we're no part of this anymore. But it's just like how we go to the ICC and we still defend Israel's position there. We've also defended the U.S. military and servicemen and women's position at the ICC. We do it to make sure they have a voice when their governments cannot act because of diplomatic concerns.
One other thing when it comes to this whole war that has broken out and the technological advances we're seeing from Iran, it's an unfortunate situation because we at the ACLJ as we pushed back against the JCPOA, that was the Obama-Biden nuclear deal, one of the big criticisms that we had was that it didn't address the ballistic missile program of Iran, but yet it gave them billions of dollars. It gave them sanctions relief. It gave them a quasi-legitimacy with having this deal with the Americans on the table. And what we now see is, what did Iran do during that period of the JCPOA? They used the cash, the sanctions relief, and no red lines on a ballistic missile program to develop some of the most technologically advanced ballistic missiles we've seen used in warfare at this point. And I think you can directly draw that line to that failed JCPOA.
I mean, the fact is, I was reading a report on our flight to Geneva this morning, and before preparing for today at the United Nations. And this report was from a source inside Israel. And I know that, there's a lot of reporting coming out, and it may change by tomorrow, but that they still believe that Iran has, 2,000 to 3,000 ballistic missiles to fire. So on the one hand, to think that, yes, you can take out a lot of ability for Iran to respond. I don't even think we have a clear understanding yet. Maybe the Israeli military does, and some of their intelligence sources on the ground. But from just reporting and what we've heard of how damaged Iran is at this point, and how damaged the Islamic Republic is, and how teetering on the edge of power. At the same time, as you said, while the world's eyes were supposed to be on them, they were able to amass a massive amount of high-tech weaponry, some which is getting through the United States' most advanced anti-missile system developed in the world. So if it's getting through Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, guess where else it could get through? Your city and your hometown. And that's what I think we have to understand is Israel has always been on the front lines on this war against terror. Iran is not just a terror group with rockets. This is a terror group that runs a state that has ballistic missiles and wanted to have a nuclear weapon. And I think just by showing where Iran has targeted, which is not military installations inside Israel, but is Israeli civilians, underscores exactly why Israel had to act, and the U.S. must be on the side of Israel.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Seculo program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.